Hey guys, how we doing and how we feeling today? I'm your host Emilio Fernandez and welcome back to the Pop and Bop podcast. Now, on this episode, we're going to talk about and review Charlie XCX's sixth studio album titled BRAT. Now, in case you don't know who Charlie is, well, let me tell you. She's best known for hits like Boom Clap, which is from the 2014 film The Fault in Our Stars. And also from that year, from 2014, we have Fancy with Iggy Azalea, which I believe was a number one hit, which would make it Charlie's only number one hit to date. Now, this album is a blend of five genres and subgenres, which are electropop, club pop, hyperpop, electroclash, and dance. Okay, so this album, sorry. Leading up to this album's release, we had two singles, which were Bun Dutch and 360. And post album release, we had the third single, which was Apple. Okay, so onto the album itself. So the album is 15 songs and it's 41 minutes and 30 seconds long. So it's your standard listening session length, I would say. Um, okay, so starting with the first track, we have 360. The production catches your attention from the get go. This is the second single, as I already said. While this track is great at setting the stage for what the album will sound like overall, it's not a very strong opening track. With that being said, however, by now, and well, now today is October 7th, 2024, and this album came out 4 months ago exactly, which was June 7th. And by now that we've had this album for 4 months, and actually I believe this Friday, October 11th, the remix album will come out. And we've had um, some of the remixes already. But in this case, I thought I should mention this. This review is based on the standard edition of this album because after the standard edition, which is this one, we had the deluxe, and now we'll have the remix edition. So yeah, but now that we've had time to sit with this album for 4 months, and it has really marinated. By now, this song 360 is pretty much synonymous with the whole album because it really, like, if there's a song on this album that really captures the essence, the atmosphere, the ambiance, it would be this one. Like, the first seconds alone, like, they spell out brat, like, just like that. Like, they really they really capture this whole thing, this whole world, that this whole green world that Charlie created. Okay, so going back to what I was saying is that in this song, Charlie talks about the impact she has on the hyperpop scene, but doesn't limit it to just herself and generously mentions Gabriette, A.G. Cook, and Julia Fox as other acts who've had this impact as well. Okay, so gotta confess here, before I listened to this album for the first time, I didn't know who Gabriette and AJ Cook were, but then I looked at the collaborators on this album, like the producers, and I saw that AJ Cook was featured quite a lot on this album as a producer. So from what I gather, AJ Cook is like a recurring collaborator of Charlie's. So yeah, nice to have. I don't know if what gender they are, but okay. Nice to have them on the album. And I believe she's a woman. I'm not sure, but anyways. And Julia Fox, I did know her, but only as an actress. I didn't know. I think she's an actress anyway. I didn't know she was an artist, and less even a hyperpop artist at that. So yeah. And yeah, I mean, Charlie really, like, hyperpop is her lane. Not saying that she has to stay in that lane because she has given us so much over her career, like, you know, musically speaking. So, but I do believe, and other people, a lot of other people would agree with me as well, that hyperpop really is Charlie at, that's her essence. That's her shtick. Now, track number 2, Club Classics. Charlie turns things up a notch with this hectic track, which perfectly captures its title from with its heavy club sound. And in this song, Charlie talks about wanting to go to the club and hear the club classics, along with her own songs and songs from her contemporaries like A.G. Cook, as we mentioned previously, and Sophie. She just wants to dance the night away, particularly in this fashion. So, pretty straightforward song. It's called Club Classics. And she's basically talking about that. She wants to go to the club and just hear those club classics, those club bangers. Uh, Not only from her own catalog, but also from, as I said, contemporaries. So, yeah. And as you'll see, Sophie is mentioned more on this album, which we'll get to in just a bit. But yeah, now we have track number 3, Sympathy is a Knife, the first of my highlights on the album. Charlie gets things on the right path with this track. And in this song, Charlie talks about still being affected by the pressure of public opinion, despite being perceived by many as a highly confident and unapologetic woman. She expresses that fake sympathy from others is sharp like a knife and spirals as she finds it hard to understand whether someone is being genuine with her or not. So, this is a pretty interesting song, lyrically speaking. Also, I like the production, but especially the lyrics, like, they're really saying something, something eye catching. Because, yeah, I mean, a lot of the times we don't know when someone is being real with us, and it kind of, well, not kind of, like, it makes us go crazy because we're like overthinking it, and we shouldn't be overthinking it because that's pretty bad, but obviously. But yeah, I mean, sympathy really is a knife. Like, sympathy, fake sympathy at that, really cuts deep. So, and yeah, I mean, for someone like me that is not like so highly familiar with Charlie, like, yeah, I have I started listening to her 10 years ago with the tracks I mentioned at the beginning, which are her biggest hits. But I'm not like, I don't know a whole lot about her, but I do perceive her as many people perceive her, which, as I said, as a highly confident and unapologetic woman. But we all have our insecurities, so maybe she's not all that. Like, I do see her that way. Like, I see her as a zero fucks given kind of girl, and like, really, like, a lot of bad bitch energy going there. But maybe she's not like all that. Maybe she's, obviously there's more to her, but yeah, like, everyone has their own insecurities. So yeah. Now, track number 4, I might say something stupid. Charlie slows things down with this track. The production here is very minimalistic, but the result doesn't sound particularly good. The lyrics are this track's strongest element. And in this song, Charlie talks about being unsure if she even belongs in her community anymore, as she used to live for the party and now yearns for a more normal life. So, yeah, this is pretty interesting as well because Charlie really is known for her like huge parties, like and ragers and raves, like her performances. Like you'll see this girl like at clubs, at house parties, and like with DJs, and everything is just so high energy. So it's pretty interesting that she's saying here that maybe she doesn't want that anymore. Maybe she just wants to live a more normal life, like something more serene, if that's even a word, like something more calm, something more low key. So yeah. Now we have track number 5, Talk Talk, another one of my highlights. This is one of the strongest tracks on the album. The production here is top notch. And in this song, Charlie talks about liking someone so much that she finds herself doing the most insane of things, like following him to the bathroom in an attempt to bump into each other, but coming to her senses before it happens to keep her cool. She just wants this guy to talk to her and get things going, hoping to take him back to her place. So, yeah, I mean, Charlie wants to make moves here, and like she likes someone, and I believe she said that this song is about her. I don't remember if she's married or if she's just like engaged or if she just has a boyfriend. But anyways, no, I don't think she's married. I think it's just her boyfriend. But anyways, yeah, she said something along the lines of that this track is actually about him, about like they kind of liked each other already, but they weren't like an item still. So they were at a place, and like he would stand up and go to the bathroom, and she like started to follow him there, but then, as I said, like she thought about it more, and she's like, okay, this is crazy. Like, why am I doing this? Let me go back to my seats. But yeah, I mean, love really makes us do crazy things sometimes. So you really gotta do those things only if it suits you, like only if it comes naturally to you. But if you think that it's something that maybe will scare the other person, then don't do it. Now, track number 6, Von Dutch, another one of my highlights. This is a lead single, as I already said, but wasn't necessarily the best choice for it. And in this song, Charlie claps back at her haters and gets the last laugh as she sees their gossiping about her as both envy and obsession. They're so hung up on that it looks like they're secretly her biggest fans. So she goes about her day unbothered and gives them more to talk about. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of us can relate to this song because we all have haters. I mean, who doesn't? And haters are an interesting species, let's call it that, because haters are really like, they really look like they're fans in disguise because obviously it's not normal to have so much passion for someone when you're like stating that you hate them. Like, obviously, you're not hating them, you're just so fixated on them. Like, you give so much attention and energy to that person that you're obsessed and you're jealous of them. So Charlie is like, hey, like I know that that's what's really going on with you guys, so I'm not gonna be bothered by that. I'm not gonna let it drain my energy or take my joy away. So I'm just gonna go about my day as if nothing's going on. Now, track number 7, Everything is Romantic. The beginning of the song sounds beautiful with this gorgeous instrumentation, which really encapsulates the theme. But it's a highly repetitive song. So, yeah, there's that going for it. Now, track number 8, Rewind. The production here is kind of overdone. And in this song, Charlie talks about sometimes just wanting to go back in time to when things were simpler, as she now feels insecure with stuff like her face, body, and whether or not she deserves commercial success with Billboard and such. So, another highly relatable song because I mean, who doesn't want to go back in time sometimes, you know? Like we all have things that we would like to change about our past, but obviously, well, it's just tiring to just think about all those things like the what ifs. So, yeah, like it's not that great to be dwelling in the past. And well, obviously with time comes more insecurities, like as I said, like having to do with your body, your face, and in Charlie's case, whether or not she deserves the success she has had with Billboard, for example, like on the charts, on the Billboard charts, and the success she's having now with this album. So, which actually, this album really was her resurgence because she really bounced back with this whole Brat era. So, so it's really a shame that she's like doubting herself, like doubting if she really deserves all this success. Now, track number 9, So I. Charlie strips things down with this track. And in this song, Charlie talks about her longtime collaborator Sophie, specifically about how she regrets pushing her away at the time, as she later tragically passed away. Charlie has gone on record and stated that Sophie is one of her biggest influences in both her artistry and life. So, okay, this is obviously a pretty sad song because it's also like a what if scenario. Like, what if I had done this and not that? And, but all I can add is that, yeah, I mean, this is something that happens, you know, like, not necessarily with someone dying, like, but it can happen that, you know, you have a friend and I don't know, like you were really close, really tight, and then you outgrow each other. And I mean, they're still around, but not around you, you know? So you kind of wish, well, not kind of, you wish that maybe you wish that you hadn't grown apart and you wish that you were still friends with that person, but sometimes you can rekindle that friendship and sometimes you can't. So it just comes down to whether or not that person is meant to still be in your life after that time or if their time in your life has passed. Now, track number 10, Girls So Confusing, another one of my highlights. In this song, Charlie could possibly be talking about Lord, as she released a remix of this song with her post album release. Um, and she's talking about how she's not sure whether she even likes her or straight up hates her, and how people always seem to compare them. Now, from what I mentioned earlier about the remix album coming out this Friday, so the remix of this song with Lord already came out, as I said. And so, looking at the lyrics of this song, like the original lyrics, it kind of points towards it being about Lord, because then Lord was featured on the remix. She hopped on the remix and she said, Lord said, let's work it out on the remix. I believe she said that and not Charlie. So I do think that maybe something happened between them. I'm not really aware of that story. But if that's the case, then I'm glad that they worked it out. Now, track number 11, Apple. This is a third single. This song gets repetitive towards the end. And in this song, Charlie talks about her relationship with her parents and family, delving into generational trauma, and she firmly believes that her family's roots are, simply put, toxic. So, I mean, a lot of people go through this. Like, family has its issues. As with everything, everything has issues, and family is not an exception. So, yeah, like generational trauma is pretty real, and it can really affect you in ways that you maybe take a lot of time to understand. But when the family roots are toxic, as I said, yeah, that's a pretty big problem, obviously. But if it's like that, then well, you gotta work it out with your family. You gotta work it out in therapy, family therapy, and stuff like that. Now, track number 12, B2B, another one of my highlights. The track's beginning is quite memorable. I've seen the initial seconds of this song on like videos and whatnot, like on X and social media in general. So it has kind of become like, I don't know if that would count as a meme, but like it has become well, not a meme, but like a famous, not a famous, a viral audio sound bites. I don't know what you want to call it, but anyways, this song is quite repetitive, but in this particular context, it works. And in this song, Charlie talks about not wanting to fall back into a relationship that has proven to be dysfunctional in the past, and instead wants that guy to run right back to his ex so he's no longer an option for her. So, yeah, this is a pretty common thing that happens with people. Like there's a relationship that you were in, and it was very dysfunctional. It was really toxic, even. And like that person may be available. And if they're available at the moment, like you can see it as tempting to want to go back to them. But even though you know that it's not a good idea, that it would bring a lot of problems for you, but you miss them. It's normal, it's natural. But you wish like for that person to just go back to their ex or one of their exes, so you can forget about them, they can forget about you, and they're no longer an option for you. Problem solved. Now, we move on to track number 13, Mean Girls, another one of my highlights. The instrumentation, in this case, the piano and production here is spectacular. And in this song, Charlie talks about society's fixation on the mean girl archetype. And not not a whole lot I can say on this or add on to this. It's just that, like, yeah, society has actually does have a weird fixation with the mean girl type of person, character, whatever you want to call it, or archetype, as I said. Now, track number 14, I think about it all the time. The lyrics are what's strongest about this track, as the production is not very exciting. And in this song, Charlie talks about her thoughts on her future and how becoming a mother would shape the rest of her life. So, yeah, I mean, motherhood obviously changes everything. Um, Not just motherhood, but, having a child in general, also like becoming a father. But in this case, with motherhood, yeah, like it's a pretty big step, obviously. So it's interesting that Charlie is talking about this. I mean, I believe she's 31 years old. So she's like at the right age to be thinking about this, you know. Like maybe if she does want to become a mother, then she should obviously like um take it easy on the partying, on the clubbing, all that jazz, and like in preparation for this stage in her life, if that's what she wants. And that brings us to the final track on this album, track number 15, 365. The last of my highlights on the album. The song's production bears similarities with the opening track 360, thus bringing the album full circle. This track perhaps sounds the most like hyperpop on the album, especially towards the end where the track turns into an all-out rave anthem. And in this song, Charlie talks about partying nonstop, almost as if it were all year long. And just like with the opening track 360 in this song, in this song, Charlie is not only talking about partying, but she's also talking about doing drugs, combining that with the partying. And we'll leave it at that. Let's just say that. And okay, so that was the album. Overall, this is a solid hyperpop album. This album feels the most like Charlie's artistic identity out of her 6 albums. However, the production is not very consistent, but the lyrics are pretty interesting. I'll say that. Now, when comparing this album to the rest of Charlie's discography, do I consider this to be her best album to date? No. I would say that Crash is Crash, her previous 5th album, is her best album to date. Now, we're gonna briefly go over her discography. So we have her debut album, True Romance, which was kind of a weak debut album. I know I've seen, I don't know what Charlie's fans are called, but I've seen some of her fans really praising this album, but I didn't really see much strength to it, much memorability to it, even. Then we have Sucker, her second album, her sophomore album. And it was with this album that Charlie achieved her biggest hit to date, Boom Clap, which peaked at number 3 on the Hot 100. One of the hits I mentioned at the beginning. And this is an improvement, quite an improvement, I would say, from her debut album, but still lacking. Then we have Charlie, her self titled third album, that for sure has its moments, but overall feels a bit underwhelming, especially for a self titled album. Because when an artist decides to put out a self titled album, I take it as okay, like this album is really important to them because it has its name on the album, like their name on the album, it's eponymous. But in this case, Charlie fell flat with this album. Then we have her fourth album, How I'm Feeling Now, which is a product of its time. It was released right during quarantine in 2020. And then we have her fifth album, Crash, which is a solid pop album. And Charlie is really in her elements here. And even though this is not uh, like a hyper pop heavy album like this album is. Crash is more of a pop album, I would say. And even though I've said in this episode that hyperpop really is Charlie's thing, um, I just think that Crash overall as a body of work is stronger than Bratz is, because yeah, even though it's not necessarily hyperpop, it's really well put together, has a lot of bops, and yeah, I mean, even though it's not um really Charlie at her like truest form, it's a great pop album, and for me at least, it's her best album to date. And that brings us to her sixth album, Brat, which we just reviewed. Now, what score do I give Brat? I give it 3.5 out of 5 stars. So, yeah, guys, that was my review for Brat by Charlie XCX. Before I go, make sure to follow Pop and Bop on social media for more content. It's basically Pop and Bop on all social media. And yeah, guys, this has been Pop and Bop. I'm Emilio Fernandez, your host, and I'll catch you next time when we sit down and review Coldplay's 10th album, Moon Music.